delivered during the. In this first panel, presenters will explain system change and introduce the water. Presenters will highlight the role of universities in system change, making clear that such efforts are relevant and appropriate to higher education settings. Finally, presenters will focus on the ITTC network and identify how system change initiatives are a critical part of the continuum on the diffusion of an innovation. We would like to welcome our presenters today, Dr. Laurie Krom, Dr. Gina, Dr. Bawo. I'm going to start well. That we expect that each presentation to last about now we're not really worried about the time, but well, we know that our brilliant speakers have a lot to share with us, and this meeting will seem like seconds. It's a great challenge, and we hope we can achieve, and the conference runs smoothly, and allows for the question and answers at the end of this session. I would like to start introducing you Dr. Laurie Krom from the United States, from the ITTC Network Coordinator Office, from the UNKC. Dr. Laurie Krom is a program director in the Collaborative Center to Advance Health Services at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. Mrs. Krom is a leader in grant development and implementation, having received multiple large federal awards. She is the principal investigator of the Addiction Technology Transfer Center's ITTC Network Coordinator Office and the Peer Recovery Center of Excellence, the co-director of the Prevention ITTC Network Coordinator Office, and the ITTC. She is a recognized leader in the substance use disorder treatment field. Mrs. Krom is a graduate of Vassar College and Kansas State University. She will receive her doctorate. She has received. She's a doctor, and prepared to hear you. Thank you. It's always so embarrassing when people read your bios, isn't it? It's very uncomfortable. Welcome, everyone. Let me just pull up my presentation. Okay. Well, welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. We are changing up the order a little bit from what was in your program. I know it said that actually Dr. Ariyo is going to start. Unfortunately, Joy was not able to make it, so Dr. Bawo James is here with us. And also, I am going to kick us off on this panel, and then we will have Dr. James and then Gina. And Gina does have a last name, but I'm going to pronounce it. Apologies for that. It's a little difficult for this English speaker. So I want to talk to you first about why we're talking about systems change.
We're here at the International Consortium of Universities for Drug Demand Reduction conference. We're all here, we work in higher education, and we often think about the role of universities in education and working with students to build the workforce. We sometimes think about universities in the role of research, but maybe it's not so common to think about the role that universities play in systems change. And so I wanted to start by talking about why we feel it's important for universities to play that role, and that many universities do. And then we'll move on to talking about what is systems change, what does that look like, and then we'll start giving you examples. And so that's how we'll start. What is the connection between universities and systems change efforts? Well, first, we want to think about the fact that universities are really prevalent all over. Despite what country you're in, you are going to have universities. You're going to have, in some contexts, I grew up in the northeast part of the United States, and in that part of the United States, there are colleges and universities in every town. They're very common. But no matter where you are in the world, universities exist. And we know from the Center for International Higher Education at Boston College that there are 277 graduate-level higher education programs across the globe and 218 higher education or institutes. So by that we mean colleges and universities. And we know from UNESCO that there are roughly 235 million students enrolled in universities worldwide. 235 million students enrolled in universities. So we have quite a large reach in thinking about why we would want to focus on universities. Another reason why universities are important for systems change efforts is that they bring value, stability, and longevity. Government administrations, as many of us know, change staff turnover. New administrations and government officials often come with their own set of initiatives that may or may not align with what currently is going on, or what the systems change effort goals and objectives are. But universities offer stability and longevity. They tend to stand the test of time. And while universities across the globe, especially in some developing countries, experience deficiencies for sure, and even in the United States, I work at the University of Missouri, which is a government public-funded university. We experience difficulties with our budgets and meeting the needs of students. Even though that is true, higher education continues to be recognized as a critical means of both economic and social good across the globe. Finally, universities have a social responsibility. And many universities have a service role as well. So universities tend to embrace three missions: education, so thinking about students, of course, research, building new knowledge, but also service is a key role for many universities. And through these universities' service mission, there are integral elements of social change. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this group called the Global University Network for Social Innovation. If you're not, I highly recommend you check it out. They have regular reports that they produce that are very well regarded, called Higher Education in the World reports. And the report in 2017 was on the role of universities in social innovation. In that report, they explain that academic centers and research teams mobilize their knowledge and skills to work with community members in local projects for the public good. Universities foster innovation by promoting experimentation in communities to discover what can be done to address complex issues. Some universities even adapt their academic and training programs to prepare students in the skills that they will need to address social problems in their specific area and revitalize those areas. Such efforts can be extended to community members through outreach programs and continuing education. This is very common in my country, in the United States. We have many universities who have something called extension programs with the specific purpose of reaching out to community members to provide education and training and skill development. So when brought to scale by universities working together, the solutions developed through the service mission of universities really can be brought to scale and can transform society. In our field, this is particularly relevant because we understand that reducing demand for drugs through improved prevention, treatment, and recovery systems requires a change in the way that society views and deals with people who use drugs. A lack of understanding of the nature of drug misuse has led to stigma and discrimination against people who use drugs, and the human and societal toll of such stigma, those effects can be devastating. So creating a non-stigmatizing, non-discriminatory approach to substance use that is grounded in public health strategies, scientific understanding of the neurobiology of addiction, and human rights will transform society. And universities are key to such efforts. So putting it all together, because universities are so prevalent in countries throughout the world, because universities bring value to society and offer stability and longevity, and because universities play a key role as part of their service mission to develop social innovations and are really responsible to improving society, we put forth that universities are critical to systems change efforts, and especially those efforts to advance systems to meet or exceed international standards for substance use services. ICUDDR, the organization that brings us here today, shines a light on the systems change role of universities through the International Technology Transfer Center Network, the ITTC network. Because of that, we have organized 3 panels. This is the first at this conference. And as a reminder, or if I know there are many of you in this room who are familiar with ITTCs, but as a reminder, or in case you're not, I want to make sure you know that ITTCs are members of ICUDDR who have an enhanced commitment to transferring research-based practices and policies in substance use, prevention, treatment, and recovery to their practitioners in their countries, practitioners, organizations, and systems in their countries. We have ITTCs in 12 countries now across the world, so we're very excited that we're growing our international network. Many of the ITTC directors are in the room today, and in fact, all ITTCs are represented here at this conference. Here are the 3 panels that we will have on systems change. First, as I mentioned, we're starting off by laying the foundation, and we will talk to you about a framework called the Water of Systems Change. This is a framework that we have been studying ourselves within the ITTCs to use as a way to talk about the work that we do. And then tomorrow we will hear more examples of how different ITTCs have used this work and this framework to guide their efforts, and then again on Friday. All 3 panels are at the same time, 11 o'clock, in this room, and although you do not have to come to each one, we really encourage you to do so because we feel like each panel builds upon the next, and by the end of all 3 panels, you will really have a good sense of not only the role of universities in systems change effort, but the role of ITTCs and the kind of work that we do and our impact. So again, today is our first panel, and we'll next be hearing from the director of the Nigeria ITTC, followed by an example from the Thailand ITTC. So thank you, and I appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Laurie Krom. We're going to have a space for make questions and receive answers, but by the end of all the presentations. I would like to introduce now to Dr. Bawo James. Thank you for being here. Dr. Bawo James, MD, is from Benin City, Nigeria. He holds postgraduate qualifications in psychiatry, epidemiology, and management. He has worked as an addiction psychiatry at the Federal Neuropsychiatry Hospital in Benin City, where he leads the Drugs Abuse Treatment Education and Research Unit. His role includes clinical care, program oversight, training, and research. Dr. James is a Humphrey Fellowship alumnus, a master trainer for TreatNet, and national trainer for the Universal Treatment Curriculum UDC. He's also an executive of ISAP, Nigeria chapter, as well as the Nigerian Society for Addiction Medicine, and SAM. Recently, he assumed the role of the director of the Nigeria International Technology Transfer Center, the Nigeria ITTC. It is focused on the system change to improve the efficiency of Nigeria's drug prevention and treatment effort. His presentation is called Exploring System Change, an example from Nigeria. Thank you, Dr. Bawo.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here. Good morning again, everyone. It's been an exciting journey, I must say, from my time as a Humphrey Fellow. Meeting a lot of influential people in the addiction space, understanding and getting a bird's eye view, really, about the drug treatment efforts, particularly efforts at prevention. It was during this time, during my fellowship, that I got exposed to the concept of technology transfer centers and was keen, and with all the available support, to get the Nigeria Technology Transfer Center to kick off. I will be laying the foundation this morning about systems change. Laurie has beautifully talked about how universities are ubiquitous, and also explained that because of their longevity and their stability, universities provide a pivotal anchor to enable and facilitate systems change. If you are new to the concept today, we would encourage you, just as Laurie has said, to join us over those panels over the next 3 days so that we can explore systems change together. For me, as an individual, it's been, will I say the word mind-altering? Because sometimes you think that you are making progress, but you get frustrated about the fact that much of what you are doing is not sustainable. And when we began to explore systems change and talk about the water of systems change, that improved our understanding. I was able to see why certain efforts we were making were not having the impact or were not enduring, so to speak. And so that's what I will talk about today. So my objectives were to talk about, look at what are systems, quickly, to delineate the boundaries regarding systems when it regards a particular problem, and also then delve into systems change, and then look at the framework or the model that we have been discussing as ITTCs, which is the Water of Systems Change model or framework. Now, doing systems change means tackling systems at their root instead of trying to prune the symptoms. For example, if we have a particular problem, say adolescent substance use problems, it's helpful that we have a systems thinking approach to how to manage it. And what we might do, for example, in Thailand will vary with what we will do in Nigeria. And it is about creating a core or creating a significant group of systems change thinkers so that we look at how certain initiatives that we do, if they're effective or not. Desmond Tutu once said, there comes a point where we need to stop just pulling people out of the river. We need to go upstream and find out why they're falling in the first place. And I think that this statement is really important for us because sometimes as addiction professionals, it can get quite frustrating. You attend lectures and then you are presented with the scope of the problem. You come in 5 years' time and you see that the problem has increased. And you wonder, what are we doing? Are we making any change at all? I do believe we're making change, but I do think that we need to change our approach to things. Also, increasingly, funders are getting more worried. Multilateral organizations and governments, they recognize that more needs to be done beyond just intervention projects. And sustainability needs to be at the core of whatever project or effort we want to do. Sustainability needs to be embedded. Now, what are systems? We talk about enduring change. And change that endures can only happen when we think systematically. And a system describes any factors that hold a problem in place. And that was really mind-changing for me because you just look at it and say, oh, adolescents are using drugs. So the solution is just to stop adolescents using drugs. But if you're a systems change person, you begin to think about what are all the factors at play, both the factors that promote, both the factors that act as barriers, and even the factors that facilitate. That's looking at things from a broader perspective and see how they interact and see what needs to be shifted and how that shift should happen so that change can be enduring. So systems are essentially a group of interacting or interrelated elements that act according to a set of rules and forming the unified whole. Meaning if we say that there is increasing use of new psychoactive substances amongst adolescents, there are certain factors that work around a set of rules to promote that. And the system is surrounded and influenced by its environment. And that's why what might work, or an initiative in one environment, is not necessarily transferable holistically to another environment. So systems that hold a problem in place, they can occur at an organizational level, they can occur regionally, it can be national or international. So it's my hope that we would leave this series of panels and begin to think that certain problems that are persistent, certain factors that hold the problem in place, we begin to think about ways in which either at the organizational level, at the university level, at the regional level, at the state level, how we can make these things change or how we can shift them. And it's important when we talk about systems that we also recognize that every problem and its associated system must have a well-defined boundary, because there is the chance that if we don't define the boundaries clearly, we might be tackling the problem with a narrow-minded view, or we may have included several factors into that systemic model, into that model that are not really applicable. And that can lead to problems where we find that either the problems we're trying to solve are too bogus or problematic, or we can find that we have done too little to effect any meaningful change. So what is systems change? And by that, we essentially talk about shifting the conditions that hold the problem in place. I just want you to hold that thought. Shifting the conditions that hold a problem in place. And it's more like dancing. When you see people dance and you see them dance in synchrony, you think that it's confusing at first. But you realize that one partner in the dance anticipates the move of the other partner. And for that dance to look very beautiful, it is because they're working in harmony. So systems tend to want to work in harmony. They want to create homeostasis. But how do we cause a problem to shift? By altering several aspects of that system. And that's what systems change is all about. And systems thinkers do not focus just on the symptoms of the problem, e.g. students in universities, like I've emphasized, using new psychoactive substances. Rather, they first conceptualize and then seek to address what is perpetuating the problem. And that's what we want to pass across. Do we need to explore the interacting elements of the school environment? Do we need to look at economic indices? Do we need to look at security? Do we need to look at community involvement, for example? Do we need to look at mental health? All these are what I believe that systems change thinkers should begin to do in their approach to managing problems that continue to persist, irrespective of the level in which it occurs. Now to this model, and this is what we've been studying for quite a while. And if you look at it, it identifies 6 conditions that hold the problem in place. And it's scaffolded between structural, relational, and transformative change. But if you look at that, we have certain factors or conditions that are explicit, meaning it's easy to identify. And these include policies, these include practices, and resource flows. I would give an example of a recent initiative in Nigeria to illustrate this model. But many times, when we talk about change, much of what we try to do is about instituting a new policy. And we sometimes erroneously think that once a new policy is in place, then we come back in a few years and we ask ourselves, why have things not changed? And that's because policies is just one condition in that model. Another that is usually quite targeted are practices. And we just come and we say, oh, the practice you're doing here is not evidence-based, so we're going to teach practitioners how to conduct this particular intervention in an evidence-based manner, which is good in itself. But what we're trying to preach today, permit me to be a minister, is to say there are other factors that we need to consider. There are other conditions that we need to consider if whatever we want to change must endure or be sustaining. Also, resource flows are explicit and they're easy sometimes. Just put money into it. Put money in this location. But aside of what is structural, trying to change the structures as it appears when we try to change things, even of more importance is what is not easily visible. And that's why we say it's semi-explicit. And in this model, we talk about relationships and connections. I have come to see in my experience ever since I came back from my Humphrey Fellowship that it's better for me when it regards a project to spend 10 months trying to ensure that I get the relationships and connections right, rather than saying that there is a policy or there is a practice that I want to implement. Because if I want, or if we want change to be enduring, we have to ensure that that condition of relationships, and that's why we also come for conferences like this, that's why we network. It's very important that we begin to teach change makers within the drug addiction space that don't just carry an idea and then go back to your locality and say, oh, we have a new way of doing things. We should also begin to teach them about the importance of relationships and establishing the right connections. Also, it's about power dynamics, which many of our teachers and mentors here in this hall will know about. Even within the universities, you have to understand power dynamics. Everything is not as clear as it seems. There's the politics of addiction, for example, and we learned that during our IPAS courses as Humphrey Fellows. And that also is equally important. What I said on reflection when we were having some of the teaching sessions was this. Because of my understanding of this, I spend more time thinking holistically about these conditions and together as a team trying to see how we can influence or shift many of these things. And lastly, we have mental models. And this is also very implicit, but very important and very cardinal to enduring change, even if it's beyond the addiction space, if it's trying to change the way people view a particular thing. And that's why information, advertisement, changing attitudes are also equally important. So we will be elaborating more about this model throughout the panels that we are having today, and till Friday, I mean. So changing systems. To be able to change a system, you must consider how your current work fits into these 6 conditions. What change, and I have highlighted that in a different font color, are you trying to see? So that's a different way to spin what we're talking about, what is the problem? How could these 6 levels support or sometimes be a barrier to the change that you're trying to see? Which level are you working on? Do you need other people to network with you or partner with you on bringing about enduring change? And how will your work or influence any of the other levels? These are the things we need to think about. So I'll just give you this quick example as I close, and it's about the recent initiative. The problem really is about individuals with substance use problems and incarceration in Nigeria. Even though we have, at the level of policy, saying that people who use substances, who do not commit criminal offenses, should not go to prison, quite a number of them do go to prison. And the judiciary is, I would say, they are tired, they're frustrated because of the high recidivism rate of people who go into prison. The prisons are overcrowded because of substance use problems, and the problems continue to persist. Which, for anybody who is a systems change thinker, the fact that certain critical power influences think that whatever they're doing is not working is a catalyst for us to begin to talk about systems change. And the practices, usually it's just about arrests for individuals who use drugs, high rates of recidivism that I've explained, and a lack of capacity for diversion. And also, looking at it systematically, we also see that much of the funding for addiction in Nigeria goes more towards substance supply reduction, and very little funds is available for prevention and harm reduction work. Also, we understand now, or I understand better, and our team at Nigeria ITTC, we have to recognize that there are tough wars. You have agencies that currently exist who would initially be resistant to whatever ideas you want to bring about. So you have to factor that. And do you want to get some synergy, or are you anticipating that they will be antagonistic, and how do you go around it? Also, power dynamics, looking at the judiciary, law enforcement agents, drug law enforcement, health and education, and also mental models in Nigeria, which have to speak about people feel you're only doing something when you say there is a war against drugs, and also addressing stigma and drug use. So recently, UNODC and our partners have a current initiative on ATI implementation in Nigeria, and Nigeria ITTC is now a member of the technical working group. And at a recent meeting in Lagos, we have begun to emphasize this model, and it has been well received by members of the technical working group, so that they look at things holistically in trying to facilitate systems change in the way people who use substances and also or offend are treated in Nigeria. So we're advocating for systems change thinking, and this project now, as a result of our talk about systems change, the efforts are directed towards trying to implement this at a regional level rather than at a federal level, which will just have all the appearance that progress is being made, whereas not much of the progress can be sustainable. So to change the system, in conclusion, we must confront root causes of issues by transforming structures, which we usually do, but also important customs, mindsets, power dynamics, and policies, and by strengthening collective power through the active collaboration of diverse people and organizations. The collaboration must be rooted in shared goals to achieve lasting improvement to solve social problems at the local, national, and global level. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bawo, for sharing with us the main or the principal, I don't know, the points of the system change model. Thank you. Okay, I would like to introduce you now to Mrs. Jairat Gina. She's from Thailand, Chiang Mai University. Mrs. Jairat Gina serves as a coordinator of Thailand Technology Transfer Center, ITTC, and a guest lecturer at the Department of Marketing, Faculty of Business Administration of Chiang Mai University. From 2007 to 2009, she was a coordinator of 2 addictions workforce development projects in collaboration with the Turning Point Center in Melbourne, Australia. She has been a coordinator of several training projects in Thailand and in the region involving health and non-health workforces. She believes that through a collaborative cross-sector interagency multidisciplinary team approach and the positive media portrayals can facilitate a system change. The presentation of Mr. Jairat Gina is called ITTC and System Change, an example from Thailand.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you for your beautiful introduction. Good morning, everyone. My name is Gina from Thailand ITTC. I am here presenting you on behalf of Thailand ITTC and our partner, the Psychosocial Counseling for Wrongdoer with Substance Use Disorder in Thailand's criminal justice system. This is our showcase for a system change that we have participated for 14 years as system change from the punitive justice to the health approach diversion since the year 2009. This health approach diversion is a multi-sector collaboration between the criminal courts, public health, social service, and academic agencies. First, I would like to emphasize the important aspect of this work. It is about building strong partnership with the 5 government organizations. They were the Office of the Narcotic Control Board, Ministry of Justice, the Office of the Judiciary, Ministry of Justice, the Department of Mental Health, Ministry of Public Health, Kalaya Ratchanakarin Institute. This is the forensic psychiatric hospital under the Department of Mental Health, and Thai Health Promotion Foundation. Thailand ITTC has taken part of this diversion initiative in the name of Southeast Asia HIV Addiction Technology Transfer Center. It is a regional ATTC at that time, or aka the Department of Family Medicine, Faculty of Medicine, Chiang Mai University. Our role in this diversion is an academic partner. We provide a capacity building on psychosocial counseling on the effort of drug demand reduction. The psychosocial counseling has been piloted since the year 2009, as the timeline shown here. At the beginning, there were 5 criminal courts, 4 in Bangkok and Chiang Mai Provincial Court. The psychosocial counseling has been gradually developed and scaled up to 165 courts by the year 2023, available countrywide in adult, municipal, and juvenile courts. Every 3-year memorandum of understanding is used as the mechanism of cross-sector operation between the criminal court, public health, social service, and academic agencies. Before going into details of each condition of the system change framework, I would like to start with the background situation at the start of the psychosocial counseling, because at that time it was the time that prison punishment has been overused for people who use drugs. Not only has effective putting drug users in prison, it leads to prison overcrowding. As a result, the country prison population rose up to the 6th largest in the world, mostly related to drug use offenses, while their addiction problem remained unsolved. We are thankful to the senior judge Jaturapataraporn Winyusakul of Thonburi Criminal Court in Bangkok. As you see, his picture is presented here. He has diverted person charged with drug use as the outpatient receiving psychosocial counseling instead of imprisonment. And it is very important to note that the psychosocial counseling in court system in Thailand has been piloted 7 years before the movement of UNGAS World Drug Policy Reform in the year 2016. And now, let's see what and how we have done in developing the psychosocial counseling in criminal court system as a health approach diversion, beginning with the first condition is policy. The left hand side here in red is about the situations holding the problem in place, while the right column in green is the strategies we use to make progress and change. During those years of traditional criminal justice approach, locking drug users up in prisons were common. Traditional sentencing guidelines influence and constrain judges to divert drug use offenders, which undermine the goal of rehabilitation and is more likely to reoffend and return to prisons. Strategies we used to convince judges to embrace the psychosocial counseling were that we adhere to the principle that drug users are patients who need treatment rather than imprisonment. To help the advance of the system change, we have developed a systematic 5-step counseling process and counseling roadmap consisting of 3 phases from acute to intermediate to long-term or recovery phases that aligning with the stages of criminal proceedings. Counseling sessions have been provided in both pre- and post-sentencing trials. At the pre-sentence trial, counseling aimed for offenders to survive their stress, preventing their bail jumping, and ensuring their court appearance, while the counseling provided at the post-sentence trial aimed for defendants to live their drug-free lifestyle. Also, data management system has been implemented and progress monitoring for 1-year follow-up evaluation. By making the psychosocial counseling a systematic process, with the continuing records and reports, judges then kept informed of drug use offenders and defendants abstinence and their coping skill. Judges little by little feel positive and more confident with the psychosocial counseling, then order more and more for the offender to receive counseling in the court premises. And next, for the practice condition, the biggest challenge is about the lack of the capacity and the confidence for the court themselves to implement the health approach diversion, which by their point of view should be provided in the treatment facilities rather than in the court premises. Whereas the probation supervision outweighed one-to-one psychosocial counseling, which require more resources and is costly. To build court confidence for providing psychosocial counseling in the court premises, SBRID has been introduced and implemented using assist light and standard mental health screening tools suitable for non-healthcare professionals to screen and keep only low-risk drug users to receive the psychosocial counseling in the court premises. Because capacity building is one of the key success factors, and we, as their academic partner, have provided both targeted and intensive technical assistance for counselor, court staff, and judge through training, mentoring, coaching, case supervision, and case conferences. 2 more curriculum of basic counseling and counseling for substance use disorder, plus 2 advanced curriculum of family counseling and group counseling has also developed and delivered, and these have been certified by Office of the Judiciary Ministry of Justice. Key learning topics include non-judgmental attitude, active listening, open-ended questioning, state of change, motivational interviewing, counseling in court system, and counseling ethics. And in terms of resource flows, we found the course lack of resource professionally for setting up a psychosocial clinic in the court premises. So criminal court operates in the closed system, thus limits their collaboration with the external network. What we do, psychosocial clinic courts is staffed by 1 or 2 psychologists and or social worker per 1 clinic per court. The employment of the clinic staff is sponsored by the Office of the Narcotic Control Board. In response to the lack of professional resources, courts recruit qualified volunteers and appoint lay judge to provide counseling. They enhance their knowledge, skill, and attitude through the core and advanced curriculum and TA providing by us as their academic partner, as we mentioned earlier in the practice condition. Moreover, cross-sector collaboration has been promoted for courts to reach out and access for resources, expertise, and service supporting drug users participating in the psychosocial counseling in the court system. Fortunately, drug users holding a referral letter issued by courts can access treatment covered by the 30 baht universal coverage scheme. For the relationships and connections condition, in the punitive system, judges may sometimes overlook and undervalue the scientific understanding of addiction and the complex factor that contributing to drug user behavior who need treatment and support. To build supportive relationship, we, the university, together with Galaya Ratchanakarin, the Forensic Psychiatric Hospital, have provided scientific information about brain drug behavior to the working team, especially for the judges. We have also fostered a collaborative relationship between judge, multidisciplinary team, volunteer counselor, and drug user to ensure that the psychosocial counseling is responsive to their needs to reduce drug demand while achieve the recidivism reduction goal. The table below shown here is the relationship between actors in the diversion. You see that judges become more of a partner of the drug use offender's journey toward the drug-free lifestyle. Court and clinic staff work closer with health professionals and social workers. Counselors serve as facilitator, life coach, and psycho-educator for drug user, offender, defendant, and sometimes their family. Next, for the power dynamic conditions, in punitive system, judges hold significant power and authority, while drug use offenders feel powerless and vulnerable. However, human rights movement and media influence can increase the likelihood of judges to divert more than traditional prison sentencing. In the psychosocial counseling diversion, incentives such as extended curfew or reduction of probation periods and sanctions such as fines, electronic monitoring, and counseling termination are used to encourage participation in the counseling, to reinforce positive behavior, and to discourage relapse. The psychosocial counseling empowers drug users because it is important that the sense of empowerment is necessary for the drug user to enhance their confidence and make positive change of their life by themselves. And we come to the last and most influential condition, that is the mental model. It has proved that misinformation and myths about addiction lead to prejudgmental attitude and stigma against people who use drugs. To engage stakeholders, especially to convince judges to shift their mindset and then therefore buy in and embrace the psychosocial counseling into the court system, we keep judge and court administration informed about client progress. Counseling records, progress reports, 1-year follow-up, and service evaluation play a critical part. So both quantitative and qualitative data have been collected and analyzed through self-report, through phone and in-person interview, through satisfaction surveys, counselor meetings, and case conferences. Also, the recidivism statistic after 1-year follow-up, monitored by the Office of Narcotic Control Board, are collecting and review as well. And because we know that media can make an impact, so we organize media education and media tour to the psychosocial clinics and also to prisons for their advocacy to promote this diversion program as well. And now we come to the conclusion. To conclude, I would summarize into 3 take-home messages. First, change is difficult. System change is much more complex, takes time, and requires different strategies and activities to influence stakeholders to make change together. Second, building relationships with multiple stakeholders is an essential part to change a system. Third, addressing shift in power dynamics in multiple levels is important. Follow-up results in the year 2022 show that the psychosocial counseling reduced minor crimes related to drug use to 0.72% recidivism rate, according to the Office of Narcotic Control Board. At the same year, UNODC and UNAIDS endorsed the psychosocial counseling in criminal court as a transition from compulsory drug treatment to voluntary treatment and complementary health, harm reduction, and social support service. If you are interested to learn more about this diversion, please scan this QR code. It will navigate you to the ITTC network resource where you can download the booklet of our 14-year lesson learned. This initiative would not have been possible without the funding and support of the partner organizations. And lastly, our sincere gratitude goes to judges, lay judge, court administrator, volunteer counselor, clinic staff, psychologists, social workers, trainers, mentors, colleagues for their contribution to the development of psychosocial counseling in the criminal court justice system from the beginning to date. And that would bring me the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Jairat, Gina. Thank you for all our 3 presentations. We have now a wide view about what the model of system change, how it works, what it is, and how it works applies to some examples. And we would like to open the space to questions to our speakers. I have the microphone. You just have to, okay.
So thank you, the 3 speakers, for your very interesting and insightful presentation. So I have a question regarding the framework of the what of system change. So when I heard the description of the framework, it seemed to me like it's the framework to be used when we analyze a situation. But my question is that how you're gonna use and how you're gonna use that framework into developing intervention. Because when I heard like Gina presentation, so it seemed to me like this is the analysis of what we have been done, and we show that we have changed different factors. But how we can conceptualize intervention at different levels right at the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. So if I understand what you're saying is this a static or a dynamic model really? Do we use the systems change framework when we're trying to conceptualize problems? But what do we do once the problems, or when we're trying to work out solutions and then see how the solutions are being transformed, more or less? I would say that it's also a dynamic model because it's something that you continue to use as long as the problem has not shifted. You continue to use this model to see what factors are promoting the change and what factors are acting as barriers. And also it will guide whatever work you're doing to see where you need to direct your resource. Also, it might not be that you need to even do much. It might be you need to bring in other collaborators to ensure that this problem shifts. We could see from Gina's presentation and also from Laurie's presentation the role of the universities in capacity building. But what we're trying to pass across is this. Just, for example, the universities going and ensuring that people get trained, and then you have practitioners who know how to deliver evidence-based interventions is not enough if you see that the problem is still persistent. So we can go back to that model and then say to ourselves, looking at this, what is continuing to keep this problem in place? It might be mental models. And then we then say, let's then begin to see who we can work with to see how we can change the narrative in the community, to see how we can get people in the community, stakeholders to come in and buy into this. Because it's one thing, for example, I'll just end with this, to have people who know and are trained how to give an intervention. It's another thing for that intervention to be accepted in that community. So the model is just beautiful because it looks at everything holistically, and you can always go back to it. And once you do that, as practitioners, we don't get that frustrated. I hope that answers the question. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for wonderful presentation, all of you. And I'm Christiana from ITTC Indonesia. I would like to ask to Gina because it's very interesting, and we are starting to do the treatment among women in the prisoners in Indonesia. Because it's very difficult, especially for methamphetamine user, because the women in Indonesia increasing 5 times compared to men using methamphetamine. And then the problem is the dropout of the treatment is very high compared to women. And there is no special treatment in the prison for women with methamphetamine use. So we are starting to do that. And I would like to ask to Gina, maybe you already have the special approach, especially for women in the prison. And then the second question, you do the system in the prison, and how about after they already come out from the prison into the community? How do you make sure they are in the treatment and they are still have a good life, maybe, especially for a woman? Thank you so much.
Thank you, my beautiful Christiana. Allow me to pass the first question to my boss, who will be the... Thank you so much. Thank you, boss.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Apinan Aramratana. We work together with ITTC for a few years. However, you can see that our group actually worked with the Office of Narcotic Control Board since more than 20 years ago, since still in punitive approach. And we looking for the positive way to change. And luckily, we have UNCTAD 2016 that is an umbrella and leading guide out of the problem that we persist. Why seeing the senior judge initiative that idea for 2 years, then we rapidly got into introducing ourselves and offer our assistance. Whatever technical assistance they need, we offer them. And working together with Department of Mental Health, then we start to build up a strong program to make sure that initiative by judge would result in a good program result, and they can perceive. And when judge in the court initiative this idea, they perceive the positive. They themselves getting addicted to provide counseling because they said that's help better than just sentencing, they said. So we start to get ownership from the judge and then get down to the mental set of the judge. That's just a small number of judges. And Igor assists us on trying to spread out this idea among the wide population of the judge in the country. And the tangible result would be something that convincing them that yes, this is the better alternative. However, the old judge would say that's not our job. That's the doctor and physician and health personnel job, not the judge job. But the young judge saying that this is the good alternative and will be a new trend of sentencing people with a more community-based idea. That means they have the mindset change. So the ownership is good. I work this program not working with prison, but I personally working with prison, a few prisons in Thailand. They don't feel like they own system of looking after the drug user. So we're still struggling to see what would be the alternative to incarceration program that can help a prison population within the prison. And we are working on the after release continuous care. So I have no answer to your question. We still need to work together. Thank you.
Very much. There's another question.
I have the second question about the follow-up, right? For follow-up is 1 year follow-up. Courts will coordinate with the probation officers, working closely with the village headman and the primary care unit. If the defendant go back to their home, they will be under care. Thank you.
Just if I may, I have some experience in the kind of work that you're asking. Very briefly, there is a significant body of literature on the behavior problems in women in prisons, particularly women with the history of amphetamine use. Very briefly, first, women are different from men. What works for men in prisons or in the community does not necessarily work for women. Secondly, the data shows, that, and this is not just the US data, the data across the board, shows that in more than 70% of women with the history of amphetamine use, there is some underlying psychological trauma, sexual trauma, physical abuse, or a combination of all of the above. So paying attention to methamphetamine use in isolation doesn't make any sense, because this will require some different type of interventions. And the last thing I want to tell you about the follow-up and the post-release, what we call it, post-release practices. The data, again, looking at the data, not just my experience, the data is quite significant. Even if you provide the best imaginable treatment in prison, the ideal, the fantastic, and probably you do, and you send people home straight from the gate after release, you're wasting your time. If there is no provision of any transitional care, and this has nothing to do what type of drugs the person is using. It's not drug related, it's behavioral related and psychosocial functioning related. If you cannot provide at least several months of transitional care post-release in the community, you will be wasting your time.
Thank you. I want to ask Gina about Thailand. The national policy about cannabis that changed in the last year or 2 years, it's a decriminalization of cannabis for tourists and for the national. Is that implement or is that influence the model? How you deal with that? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. And I think cannabis use in Thailand is a very interesting issue for the region, actually, because people come from the Asia region to use cannabis in Thailand and go back their country and being arrested. Yes, it's true that the government seems to jump on the free ban of cannabis too quickly. Actually, the initiative on that would start from the medical cannabis use and research. However, the politician seems to eager to open up a cannabis business in the country. And then after last year, they announced free cannabis use. They mentioned they control only THC level of the product, and no one care about the level. Send this to the lab and checking, and no one care about. So cannabis shop spread over Thailand, especially the tourist area like Chiang Mai, Phuket, Samui, this sort of thing. However, cannabis product produced in Thailand, the quality is not equal to the international standard. And the data from the Office of Narcotic Control Board show that they survey the product in those areas, and they found that most of cannabis shop in tourist area actually use the imported cannabis product because it seems that foreigners who go overseas to Thailand for cannabis, they need a quality product. So you can see that it complicates situation. It's not just simple growing cannabis backyard and then abuse it. It has mixing up with various issues. There are a few a draft of a new amendment to cannabis law because the cannabis used in Thailand in the previous few years increased more than 3 times. The kids try out cannabis in various forms. So there are many negative impacts clearly shows up in the society, and the parliament now review a new amendment. The trend would be try to put back, but not the same as before, but in between we are struggling to find the middle path. Actually, that's my answer. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bob Balstra. I'm from Virginia Commonwealth University. I was a previous coordinator of the Humphrey program at VCU, and I want to thank Bawo James for his favorable comments about the program. So I'm embarrassed to say that I was not that familiar with the ITTCs. I kind of was very familiar with the American ATTCs, but I was very impressed with this program, and as I'm understanding it from this symposium, which is very helpful to me, that you've been able to kind of create an international network of trainings that are kind of based around a common systems change approach with a common vocabulary, and I think that's just such a fantastic development. I want to congratulate you. So I have a question. I guess I will address it to Bawo, but maybe someone else could answer. So I mean, what's essential to what you're describing is what we've always called interdisciplinary work. I mean, you're talking about having to bring psychologists and criminologists and law enforcement, and it strikes me that a core problem in doing that is the fact that we don't share a common language at all. About addiction. When we talk about cancer, there's very little ambiguity about cancer, and people who have it are patients, et cetera, et cetera. When it comes to addiction, of course, we've got offenders, we've got addicts, we've got persons with substance use disorders. I mean, we have such basic language problems. So my question is, how have you addressed that, or have you developed a sort of a common understanding of how to address that problem and bringing together interdisciplinary groups? And just, it occurs to me that in our training programs for professionals in addiction, wherever they may, in whatever discipline they may be, that we need to start teaching, each other's languages, so that we have a little bit better basis for, common understanding and systems work like what you were describing. So how have you approached that issue as a network?
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Good question. I think it's about finding the low-hanging fruits, really, amongst all the disciplines. We might disagree on the etiology for addictions or the models. Some might hold moral models, and still some might say that the approach also should be different. Some might say it's about supply reduction only, and you should not look at harm reduction, for example. But usually when it comes to talking about the problem, what we found at Nigeria ITTC is we tend to get more concordance around what the problem is. If we say that we have overcrowded prisons and it's filled with people who have committed offenses, that the law, because the law is unwieldy, there is usually agreement around that. The police is frustrated that they keep having the same people cycle in and out. The judges are getting tired. The prison services are complaining because the resources are not enough to take care of people in prisons. And then we then come with an alternative that speaks more to the problem rather than the challenges. And also agreeing that one of the challenges we have is how we communicate. Because I tend to see it as one person using you're trying to speak different languages really, and hoping that by speaking different languages loud enough, the loudest person will then dominate the room. The fact that other professionals are quiet doesn't mean they agree with you. So once we have a shared common problem we want to solve, we can then begin and talk about the issues that unite us rather than the issues that divide us. And then with that, we're able to foster synergy and then make commensurate progress towards trying to solve that particular problem. And usually as we begin that journey, we might then begin to see gradual shifts. You might see institutions that don't want to talk about drugs. They don't want to talk about addiction models and all of that. You might see them becoming more open because of the interaction that is happening. So there are some processes that are subtle, that happen without your intention, and this goes a lot to help. But it's all about trying to see how we shift the conditions that hold the problem in place. I hope I answered the question. Okay.
Hi, good morning. My name is Lê Minh Giang. I'm the Vietnam ITTC director. And thank you, Laurie, and everyone for an excellent panel and a great presentation. I don't have a question, but I have more like a comment. I think that you all have provided a very excellent overview and examples of a theoretical framework that I think would be very useful for us as we move forward with the ITTC in the future. I just want to emphasize the word systems, which is plural. It's not one system. There are many systems. And as we deal with the issue of substance use, whether women in prison or young people using cannabis, or we have to think of the multiple systems that we are faced with. And as you think about the river, right? So we are not just pulling people out of the river at the upstream. We may have to pulling people out from many small streams that all leading to the big rivers. So I think that we have to think about health systems. We have to think about school system. We have to think about water system even. There are a lot of the social determinants of substance use that we have to address. So I think that the more we look into the multiple systems, the more we analyze and collect evidence and thinking about interventions and really identify who are our stakeholders, who are our allies, and who are people who we need to convince. So in summary, congratulations. And there's a lot of work for us to analyze the systems. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Paul Dubuff. I'm a nurse from London, UK. And thank you for your presentation. It's very inspiring. My reason for being here is the title of the conference, The Art of Healing. And I felt very drawn to it because even though system change is really important, I really am looking for system transformation. I don't believe systems will be the answer to the addiction challenge. It is about finding and helping people falling into the river, but I also feel what was mentioned this morning in the keynote, that is about recognizing that we are all kind of wounded healers, and that pain and frustration and wanting to help kind of binds us and connects us. So it's more like just a question to pose, like how can we transform systems into transformational systems, and what is needed to make that jump, make a leap instead of kind of changes in the parameters. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. And I think it's a good one for us to end on. Bawo talked about how the pyramid of the model and the top levels of the conditions are structural changes, but that bottom level, the mental model, is where the transformational change comes. And I really appreciate what you say about the title of the conference and the art of healing. I think it reminds us that ultimately we need to remember that we're in the practice of helping people, and we need to keep people at the center of this. And I was listening to also the keynote presentation, and it made me think of a statement that we have a thought leader in the United States who's been really prominent in our recovery movement. His name is Bill White. And he says, actually, that focusing on the pain is maybe not what we should do, because people who have substance use disorders, it's not that they don't have enough pain, it's that they don't have enough hope. And so that's an example of thinking about how we shift mental models. And if we take that, we can think about that as an individual level for our patients, and how do we inspire hope and motivate hope in people. But if we think about that at the systems level, I think the transformational change comes when we can convene people from all of the different systems that Dr. Zhang was talking about, and help them understand that we are all really wanting the same goal. We all want healthy and safe communities, and how do we motivate people to hope? How do we inspire people to look towards that same direction? And that's where the transformation will happen. And all of these other conditions are the how we get there, and we have to consider all of them. Absolutely, we have to think about the policies and the practices. We have to consider the relationships and the power dynamics, but we will not make the transformational change if we don't focus on the mental models and getting people to come together for those common purposes. So thank you for the question.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, there is another question. I think we are just in time. Do we have time for another question? Yeah, just
probably wrap it up very briefly.
okay. Just the last question.
I will contact her.
Very briefly, please.
Okay, great.
Okay. Thank you very much. I would like to say thank you to our three brilliant speakers, and thank to you all for attending this panel. We would like to invite you to our next two panels tomorrow and Friday morning. We would like to share with you all new experiences that our ITTC have developed during the last years. Thank you very much. Have a great journey after that. Thank you.